Well, happy Friday to you. My name, meteorologist Craig Moeller from 13 News Now in Norfolk, Virginia. Want to say happy Friday. We made it to the weekend. It's time for more with Moeller. It's a deeper dive into weather, and I'm so glad you're with us today. Here are the topics we're going to be tackling, and there's a lot going on nationally, and we're going to talk about the tropics as well. We have Rafael still rocking in the Gulf of Mexico. At one point earlier this morning, it was back to a Category 3 hurricane, a major hurricane once again, as it was before making landfall in Cuba. Now it is in the Central Gulf, and it went from a Cat 3 this morning back to a Cat 2 at the 10 o'clock update. I'll show you the latest on that and where it is headed coming up. Another topic that we're going to tackle, the Santa Ana winds. They're fanning wildfires out in California, and there is more snow for Colorado and New Mexico. One of the greatest snowfalls on record in November for Colorado, and parts of New Mexico hit really hard. We'll talk about the additional snow that's coming that way and how it's kind of related to the same system that's driving some of the Santa Ana winds and fanning those flames out in California. It's really an interesting setup out there. We'll talk more about that. And then we have our record dry stretch ending here in Hampton Roads. We finally, after 36 days, we had some precipitation this morning. I'll talk more about that. But it's important to note the drought continues for Hampton Roads and for much of the East Coast. In fact, we're going to talk a little bit about a wildfire up around New Jersey. We were looking at that, the Palisades wildfire that's going on. So we'll talk about all of this as we go over the next half hour or so. And again, so glad you're with us on this Friday morning. First thing, we're going to talk about the tropical update, and we have Rafael still spinning out there. Let's take a look right now at the list of Atlantic hurricane names. I'm going to step over to the big board and talk to you about what's coming up. Next name on the list, Sarah. There's one other area we're watching, but the chances for development, not all that great with that one. I do think there may be something a little farther down the road, though, and we'll explain that as we kind of break things down here. Right now, there's Rafael. If you've got a keen eye and you're interested in the tropics, that probably jumped right off the map at you, didn't it? You can see very clearly there is a well-defined hurricane. Again, earlier a major hurricane, now a Category 2. We're watching some unsettled weather here approaching the Turks and Caicos, just north of Hispaniola and back towards Puerto Rico. This whole area we'll keep an eye to. Aside from that, nothing else really brewing for now. As we focus on Rafael, you can see again this system very well balanced, very symmetrical, but it is going to encounter some drier air as it moves along, and it is forecast to weaken over time. So while it's a Category 2 with winds right now, maximum sustained winds around 110 miles per hour, some gusts up around 130, movement is west at 9 miles per hour. That forward motion with the system has been slowing a little bit. If you remember, a couple days ago, it was moving along 14, 15 miles per hour. Yesterday, we saw it going from 14 to 12, and now this morning down to 9 miles per hour. It is moving westward, but as it slows, we're going to see some shearing, some winds kind of shearing a little bit, and also the intrusion of some drier air further weakening the system. So that's Saturday morning, those winds down to 80 miles per hour. The Hurricane Center is forecasting this to continue to weaken, those winds down to 50 miles per hour by Sunday morning. Now you see the Texas Gulf Coast here, Louisiana, back over to Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. All of these folks are saying, stay away. We don't want this getting any closer. And you can see what it's forecast to do. Generally, the thinking is that it's going to kind of stall and continue to weaken as more dry air comes in and it undergoes some further shearing. Also, when these things are slow movers, now it's over the water and it's just sitting and spinning and kind of stirring up the water underneath it. It needs the warm sea surface temperatures to continue to get that fuel to keep itself healthy and growing or maintaining strength. when it's slow moving, it's basically almost like a blender in a mixing bowl. It's just stirring up that sea surface water, and that tends to cool as you get some of the cooler water beneath the surface starting to kind of upwell and mix in a little bit. So again, it should continue to weaken as it slows and maybe pivots a little bit to the north. That's through Monday, 7 a.m. After that, it's actually forecast to start to dip southward as a remnant low. Now, the Hurricane Center believes by Tuesday morning, winds should be down to 35 miles per hour, and then eventually it continues south and southwest, moving with 30-mile-per-hour winds, just a remnant low, just a shell of what it once was. So again, at this point, that would bode very well for the U.S. Gulf Coast. Certainly good news there. And for folks down in Mexico, the Bay of Campeche, they'll want to pay close attention to it. But with all the shear going on, it is not expected to do too much here as it stays in the central Gulf and then eventually slides down to the south. Now, again, this is a GFS model. I've been showing this for the past couple of days. Just want to show you one of the other solutions. Earlier, this one at one point was kind of coming up towards Mobile Bay or maybe back over towards Gulf Shores. It was kind of coming up that way. And we were even wondering if we were going to see some of that remnant moisture up into our area. You can see what happens with the GFS. It kind of brings it around, and now it's kind of stalling it out, and it kind of weakens it out there. Take a look at the models, and they kind of go in different directions. Some of them kind of bring it out in here, and pretty much all of them stall it out in here. Some of them take some of the remnants and just kind of blow it off that way. But the bulk of the modeling, and again, what the Hurricane Center is doing is taking it farther south, and that's what all these models are doing in here. This is more of the thinking as a weakened storm. Both the GFS model, the American Global Model, what is known as the GFS, that's an abbreviation for the Global Forecast System, and the European model, both show this thing weakening over time. And that's the main thing, is it's out there in the Gulf. You know, no matter which way it goes, whether it jogs a little farther north or a little farther south, you can see the American model positioned right here, the center with the Euro right here. So it's kind of starting to split a little bit, but both of them really weaken it. And you can see over time, while the American model keeps it a little bit stronger, eventually it winds down as well. So neither one of these bring one of those tight, projections for this hurricane anywhere into the Gulf Coast. So that's the big news there, and that is certainly good news. We'll see how things play out, but that is the latest on Rafael. There's that other area we were talking about, again, right now positioned north of Puerto Rico and eventually this area just north of Hispaniola up towards the Turks and Caicos. We're going to be watching for that. Maybe the Bahamas could see a little bit of wet weather as this drifts along. But again, looking at those other models, the Euro and the GFS, neither one really do much with it. And again, as I've been saying for days, if you've been watching these more with Moeller's, we talk about kind of the weather pattern being a little more active. We have a front kind of sagging through the area, and just to the south today here in the mid-Atlantic, there'll be another one coming in Sunday into Monday. And, these reinforcing shots with these cold fronts coming through tend to either disrupt the development of these things, or even if anything were to develop, it would kind of shear and then be turned away. So we're not too worried about that. I did mention, though, as we started this particular segment, that there might be a little something down the road. And again, I don't have a way to project that right now with this image, but I will say the GFS model was hinting that there could be another tropical system somewhere in the Caribbean, possibly coming up into Cuba or even into this area by next week at some point, maybe towards the middle to end of next week. So it's something to watch. Again, it's way too early to know if that's actually going to happen, but something maybe a little farther down the road. Remember, the next name on the list is Sarah. After that, Tony. And, of course, we'll keep a close eye. Reminder, the season technically ends November 30th. We really don't have that much more, just a few more weeks before we put this Atlantic hurricane season to bed. But this little blob of color here beyond November 30th should also serve to remind you that even once we get into December, sometimes there can be out-of-season systems, so that's something else to think about. All right, we're going to turn our attention to our next topic, and we've got more snow for parts of New Mexico and Colorado, and we have some video that I'd like to show you from Colorado. Take a look. Again, this video comes from our sister station, and 13 News now is part of the Tegna family. We've got an incredible group of stations across the country. So KUSA, our sister station in Colorado and Denver, phenomenal group there. You can see the video creating issues on the roads, the snow that came. There was the governor there verbally declaring a disaster emergency and authorized Colorado National Guard members to provide winter storm response support. So they're watching. I-70 was closed. Trucks were waiting at some stops for over 18 hours. Lehman had already had 14 inches of snow, and Denver was expecting some more snow this morning. They've seen some of that. In some places, snow drifts could be up to 4 feet. So you get a look at I-70 there and some of the roads. Let's take you live right now if we still have that view. I think we've got one from Coors Field, and there it is. Snow still coming down in Denver, and that's the view from Coors Field where the Rockies play. Again, no good weather for baseball today there in Colorado. So what's going on out there? Let's talk about the system and what has set all of this up. There's still this frontal boundary that is out there. We've got very cold air back across eastern Colorado and parts of New Mexico. There's been a lot of moisture feeding in. Now you can see just some of the cloud cover. This is the top part of Rafael down in the Gulf, but that's not really feeding in. What we do have, though, is this area of low pressure that's spinning here. Here's our frontal boundary. And again, the winds are riding up over that. We've got cold air in place. And with that cold air there, as we put the winds on, you'll notice, again, some of this moisture overriding this front. So we've got areas of rain and some maybe heavier downpours around the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma. You get up into the Great Plains. You head across parts of western Kansas and up into Nebraska. Some significant rain there. But the air is cold enough that snow has been coming, and it keeps on coming back across parts of Colorado and New Mexico. So significant amount of cold air in the snow. And I'll just mention here a little teaser. We'll get to this. The winds around this high pressure back over Nevada, some of this cool air working its way over the mountains and coming down. And we do have some Santa Ana winds that we'll talk more about for Southern California and the wildfire situation there. Before we get to that, I want to focus right now on the outlook. This is the GFS snowfall potential, and it's just one model's projection. But you can see, again, some significant snow on the eastern portions of Colorado out on the Front Range there and areas out farther to the east all the way to the Colorado-Kansas state line and up into southern Wyoming, a little bit of snow up that way as well. Some of these areas shaded in purple, as you can see from our key there, the legend showing more than 12 inches of snow additionally, potentially through Saturday noontime. So within the next 24 hours or so, we could pick up another 12 to 18 inches in some areas, maybe some locally higher amounts. It's not out of the question. That's the GFS snow potential. Here's a look at the European, and we'll take a look at that. And basically, again, what you'll see, this area already picking up snow. Not as much with the Euro. The Euro suggesting more like 6 to 12 inches for these areas shaded in dark blue. But there's some areas that could see over a foot, maybe 12 to 18 inches there over eastern Colorado. So again, significant impacts to Colorado. They're dealing with this. Skiers may be loving this early snow up over in the highest elevations. But for those traveling I-70 and just dealing with life in eastern Colorado, this has been a significant snowstorm, and those heavy snows extended down into New Mexico as well. All right, I mentioned the high pressure here back over Nevada and the fact that this cold air kind of being pulled in. It's also, there's some air that's being pulled around the backside of this high, and that air, as it comes down and starts to funnel through some of the canyons, focuses the winds. And this brings us to our next topic. Santa Ana winds are fanning wildfires in Southern California. Now, I want to talk to you about the wildfire situation down there in California. And we've got some video to show you what's going on. Again, this is Southern California, and reports coming from ABC. More than 20,000 acres in California were burning in just under 24 hours. A brush fire in Southern California triggering mass evacuations and ripping through more than 100 buildings. California Governor Gavin Newsom has called in state and federal resources to help contain the fire and has declared a state of an emergency in Ventura County. So just incredible to see this. And again, those winds really fanned by some of these powerful Santa Ana winds. So we're going to talk about those and kind of what's going on here. So why these Santa Anas fuel wildfires? Basically what you're looking, these winds funnel through some of these mountain passes. They're downsloping winds, and I'll talk about what that means. But when you think about it, this cooler air coming from the higher country out to the west starts to come in. It's being swept around by that area of high pressure. And as it's kind of forced into some of these mountain passes, it acts kind of like a funnel. And if you think about it, when you've got a large area of wind that is moving, this air mass moving along, and all of a sudden it can only get through some narrow passes, that's going to focus and force it out with greater pressure or stronger wind speeds in this case. You could kind of make it a kind of a comparison to, say, a hose. You've got a garden hose out there, and maybe you've got your garden hose and you're just washing your car and you're just throwing some water on it, not a big deal. Well, if you take your thumb and put it over part of the edge of the hose, you know that increases the pressure and that water comes out a lot harder. Same thing here. If you didn't have the mountain passes, that would be like the hose just throwing water out, right? But as soon as you cover part of that, you know, with those mountains, it allows a narrower part of that air to come through. It comes out and focuses it with stronger winds. And we're talking about some winds, tropical storm force winds with some of those gusts. We'll talk more about it. Downsloping winds dry out and warm as they lose elevation. As they come down, there's compressional heating. So you've got warm, dry air that is moving very quickly with those higher wind gusts. Now, here's an example, and again, I'm just using this to show you the focus of a lot of the wildfires have been in Southern California, but we'll just use this as a general example. With high pressure to the north, the winds coming around, you can see those strong winds coming in from the east and the northeast, 25 to 40 miles an hour. Through those mountain passes, gusts up 60 to 70 miles per hour. In some cases, that's the type of wind speeds you're talking about with the Santa Anas. And again, you do have that high fire danger. Keep in mind, as the winds move down the mountains, you could have, again, that drying takes place and the warming with the descending air. So low humidity, again, warmer air, and that really creates a much elevated fire danger. And we just saw that, again, with the Santa Anas down in Southern California. So that's kind of how that works. I just wanted to give you that example. Now we're going to talk about the drought update, and we've been talking about this for so long. We have gone 36 days in Norfolk with no measurable precipitation. Yesterday was day 36, and the streak finally ended. It's so funny, you know, a lot of times when I wake up, I'll check my phone when I get up in the morning and take a look at world news headlines, or I'll check sports scores, or maybe fantasy football updates, or whatever it is. Well, this morning, the first thing I checked was Norfolk International. Well, I looked at the radar to see if there's anything out there when I woke up at 2:30 this morning. But I went back and I took a look at the hourly observations at Norfolk International, and I said, we got 1/100th of an inch of precipitation, and that came in with the 1250 observation. So a little bit before 1, we picked up some light rain. So here you go. Yesterday through midnight, we were dry, but just after midnight, Norfolk finally got some rain. So we will now put down on the record books, after all the warm and dry weather that we've had recently, you can see still no precipitation through last evening at midnight. But today, Friday, when we look at this graphic, tomorrow and beyond, this will update after today, the end of the day, showing 2/100ths of an inch at Norfolk International. So finally, things have stopped after 36 days. 2024, we can now say we went through the longest dry stretch of weather on record for Norfolk International at the airport. And they started keeping records there back in 1940, so it's been a minute. It's been a long time since we've never been this dry for this long as far as consecutive days without precipitation. Now, we are still in drought. This is by no means a drought buster. We just had a little bit of precipitation. There was actually another batch of rain that came through a little later in the morning, so we've seen a few isolated showers. As we go through the afternoon now, Saturday and Sunday will also be dry. Our next chances for scattered wet weather around Norfolk coming up on Monday. And even then, just isolated to scattered, chances remain low after that. So we are by no means out of the woods as far as the dry weather goes. We are still in moderate drought here in the mid-Atlantic, and we'll expand the view. You can see severe drought off to the north. This includes the northern neck and northern sections of the eastern shore up through Maryland and Delaware. As we expand the view, notice New Jersey here also with severe drought. And I want to show you a live look if it's still up. And there it is. That's the Palisades wildfire near the George Washington Bridge. Again, this is up around the Jersey Shore, or I should say New Jersey, not the Jersey Shore. But you can see again their wildfire burning. And that is a product of just very, very dry conditions up there. That is the case right now. And you see the wildfire burning. So we're talking about wildfires back in California and the problem with the Santa Anas, but even here it's been so dry up across the Northeast, New York City, Philly, parts of New Jersey under severe to extreme drought. We're also looking at very dry conditions continuing around West Texas and back up through Wyoming and up into Montana and North Dakota, parts of western Montana, also under extreme to exceptional drought. That's what's going on right now. Again, that area of low pressure producing the snow back across Colorado and New Mexico right now. It is producing some rain here, but that won't show up in the drought monitor until next week's update, which will come out on the 14th. So we will, of course, keep you updated on all of the developments with that. All right, I do want to talk to you now about the weather across Hampton Roads. It was cloudy this morning. We had some showers. Those clouds are starting to break up. We do have a cool change coming up now. The clouds out there, this is going to thin out. And as we head through the evening hours, it's going to become breezy. We've got small craft advisories that'll go up later tonight and tomorrow with winds a little gusty tomorrow for your Saturday. But skies should be mostly sunny. Note the temperatures. Yesterday's high was 80. We've been in the low 80s for the past few days. What we're going to find with those north and northeast winds, much cooler tomorrow. Highs only around 60 degrees, maybe 61 officially. And then as we get into Sunday, the temperatures do come back a little bit with more cloud cover. Most of Sunday looks dry, but Sunday evening into Monday, we get our next chances for a few showers. You see this stuff coming by later Sunday evening, and then into early Monday morning, another batch kind of works through. So some isolated to scattered wet weather into early next week. Still, we're going to need more rain. All right, as we take a look at the forecast for today, instead of being near 80 like it was yesterday, we'll be around 70 for Norfolk, mid-70s, Suffolk, Franklin, and Wakefield, 72 in Chesapeake and Virginia Beach. Looking off to the north, the eastern shore, beautiful area up there. Skies mostly sunny, again, dry, but they're going to enjoy pleasant conditions for outdoor activities this afternoon. For the northern neck, the middle peninsula, skies partly sunny. We'll see gradual clearing later this afternoon. All right, down across North Carolina, a little warmer, upper 70s, Edenton and Hertford, mid-70s for Elizabeth City, temps closer to 70 around the Outer Banks. Overnight lows tonight down around 54 degrees, clear and breezy. Those north winds 10 to 15, that's not a big deal. But I think towards sunrise tomorrow, gusts will start picking up closer to 20, maybe 25 miles per hour tomorrow. So it will be a little breezier, mostly sunny. Temperatures, as I mentioned, around 60, maybe 61 degrees officially. After that, we're going to find the skies partly sunny on Sunday, increasing clouds there, but the temperature is also increasing. We'll get back up to 70 degrees. 74 for Monday, Veterans Day. We do have the isolated to scattered wet weather. Could see something late Sunday evening. And then into Monday, that's when we'll see our scattered showers. Looking ahead to Tuesday, a lower risk, partly sunny, and temperatures back in the mid to upper 60s. Obviously, a lot going on around the country. We continue to keep an eye to all of this. That's what we do here as we share more with Moeller. Again, it's a deeper dive into weather. Hopefully you enjoy these. We want you to keep checking back. Tell your friends about this. This is one of those things that we are doing each Monday through Friday in the morning around 10:30 or so. We aim to get this going, and we pull in weather stories from around the country, and we want to share that with you. If you can, give me a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and X. You see the different areas where you can find me there. And again, 13 News Now and our weather team has a great amount amount of resources available through our website, 13newsnow.com, and of course right here on the 13 News Now Plus app and on YouTube. If you're following us there, we do appreciate it. We want to thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you again next time.